Hey, and we're live. Welcome, sports fans, to Sports Vival Fantasy Football Podcast. This is the Rockin Renegades. I'm Ralph, your fantasy football guru host for the evening. We are sponsored by First and Goal Collectibles, South Hills Village for all your sporting needs. If you're at Village, hit up Mr. Mark Caputo, 412-854-5200. You can get your autographed jerseys, sports cards, collectibles, starting lineups. They have comics. They have everything. But anyway, we are here to talk with you, and we're taking calls and things about fantasy football. And my co-host for tonight, they just popped up on the screen. Welcome, John.
Ralph, how are you tonight, man?
I'm good, man. Excited for the first chat of the year. We're planning on probably just going over standard drafts tonight. I know it's boring for a lot of people. But there are still a lot of, beginners in fantasy. We're going to go over first round, top picks of, your standard categories, your receivers, your quarterbacks, your running backs, tight ends, just general talk. So what do you have to say, John? Tell us a little bit about yourself there.
Well, let's put it this way, Ralph. We'll talk a little fantasy now. That's what everybody's tuned in here for, but I did a couple mock drafts, the last few days, and it's going anywhere from 7th to 11th, or the two where I started at, where I pick from. But it's one thing that I really noticed is that a lot of running backs are going early. I mean, a lot, and it seems like it's been a little bit different, the last few years in the drafts that I've been in. Seeing more receivers, going. So, is that telling us something? We don't know.
Well, I don't know, man. I'm starting to see. I'm kind of seeing the opposite. The top of your drafts is starting to be filled with a lot of receivers. I think a lot of that has to do with the change in the NFL. Becoming a more pass-happy league. It's not our football league that we grew up with. The days of the Earl Campbells and the heavy hitters at running back. With all the passing going on, even your receivers being so deep, you're second, and sometimes we even talk about a few guys being third receivers that might get some play in the in the league here. So what do you want to start off with, John? Do you want to do a quick mock draft? Do you want to start to go through keepers? Do you want to go through top players at each position? Let's make your call first.
Let's do a mock.
Okay, sounds good to me.
Everybody walk us through, and then we can have a little bit of fun with that to get started.
Sounds good. So let's do most of your standard fantasy leagues, as we talked about. People getting in, they're usually 12 to 14 team leagues, mostly 12. A lot of them you draft. You start a quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 to 3 receivers, a tight end, a kicker, and a D. We're not going to go over kickers and defense tonight because those are just dumb.
Hey, you're going to disappoint a lot of fans there with the kickers.
Oh, I know. One of your favorite guys, Dicker the kicker. I know.
That's it. I draft him in every draft too, man. I can't wait to get that. Just so I can say the name. Even if he gets hurt, you still got
it. Anybody out there, has any kind of questions, tune in. But we're going to talk about who goes number 1 in our drafts. And I see a lot of going across the board. If this was my choice, as we talked about receivers going first, it's kind of hard to steer away from wide receiver in Cincinnati, Jamar Chase. The guy's just a stud. Him and Burrow teaming up. Burrow's healthy. He looked great in the first preseason game. You're talking about a guy that's going to put up, 1,400 yards and probably 12 to 15 touchdowns. And that's what, I'd be looking at with my number 1 draft pick of a standard league. John?
I liked what you said there too. And I say I have to agree with that. And I think that one of the reasons that I like Chase so much is the fact that not only is the combination with Joe Burrow in that offense, but T. Higgins coming back obviously is going to open up things for that offense. But what's nice about Chase is he's used in the red zone as well. It's not one of those receivers where, hey, we're just going to use this guy, from 20 to 20, and he catches a lot of long touchdown passes. I like the fact that he's versatile enough, and he's even if you double team him, you still throw it to him in the end zone because you know this guy can make a play, and that trust between him and Burrow, I think that says a lot.
It's amazing, and the thing that Chase has going for him too is we'll talk about later too is the offense there in Cincinnati. Being T Higgins on the other side of him, and even a guy that I don't want to say was a surprise that we knew about it, but Chase Brown at running back. I mean, the guy's being drafted a little bit later, but could possibly put up top 5, top 10 running back numbers this year. But so with a nice offense like that, it does open up a little bit of room for him. But like you said, when he's double and triple covered, then T Higgins just he's left out there to eat. So, but I think we both agree with number one. But number two, John, we were talking about we talking about more receivers or the first running back.
So I'm looking here. And if I look at the top 5, we have the tier 1 players, which is Jamar Chase, Bijan Robinson, Justin Jefferson, and CeeDee Lamb. And it's tough when you look at between, Bijan and Justin, you're both going to see a ton of touches. Bijan obviously isn't in as high powered on offense, obviously, as what Justin is. But, I think I go Bijan Robinson there. Just for the fact that he gets he gets the carries, he gets the touches, he gets the goal line carries. How about
you? They're saying Atlanta, they're just going to feed him the ball, constantly feed him the ball. So, right. I mean, you got a guy that's he's going to catch the ball out of the backfield. He's going to like you say, he's going to get a ton of touches, easily over 300 touches. Here's a question before we move on to the next pick. Who do we think the first quarterback is going to be off the board, and will it be a first-round pick? Will a quarterback make the first round in the regular draft?
That's a tough one. Again, looking down here, and we're looking at top quarterbacks here. I mean, obviously, you have Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, those two guys. In the drafts that I've done, the last 2 that I've done, I've seen Allen go. I mean, high second. I didn't see a quarterback go in the first in a 12-team league. Maybe it was just the 2 that I was in, but I kind of, when you're in Yahoo leagues, you look at kind of like the standard piece. But I know leagues like you and I are both in. Obviously we're in a dynasty league together, but I'm also in a couple of leagues at work, and the quarterback on the scoring scale, they tend to go a little bit higher in that league. So a guy like Josh Allen, I mean, you're basically drafting a quarterback and a running back with a guy like that. So,
would you draft Josh Allen over Lamar Jackson? Look at Jackson's numbers last year. Right. Jackson was known for being the running quarterback. He runs in 10, 12 touchdowns, but the guy threw for 41 touchdowns last year. Now, is it a fluke?
Right.
Or is this something coming? So Lamar Jackson over Josh Allen, your choice, John. Where would you go? I know where I would go because I have both of these guys in leagues. And I mean, hate to say it, I mean, Lamar Jackson for me is probably a pick over Josh Allen. It might not be a popular pick with a lot of people, but that's just my opinion.
I kind of look at it as, what is Lamar Jackson going to be this year? I see the guy, continuing to do well. I mean, he runs the football an awful lot, and you look at the offenses too. I think Lamar Jackson has a little bit more potential to get you those rushing touchdowns than what Josh does. Just based on the way the offense is laid out. I mean, you're looking at James Cook, and guys like that, and Cook, obviously had a lot of red zone touches last year. And I'm with you on this. I think that I would take Lamar, even though I like Josh Allen better, obviously. That's such a close pick. I don't think you could do wrong either way.
I don't either. Like I said, Lamar Jackson taking a step up. I think a lot of that too is a lot of the running taking off him. Now he's still running the ball in, but with Henry there, it gives him a little more option. But all right, back to the number 3 pick. So number 3, we're still talking. There's still running backs out there. There's still receivers. And for me, number 3, and this is just a guy that I've had on my team for years in Dynasty. I mean, I love the guy. I love seeing him going somewhere last year, and I'm talking about Saquon Barkley. Barkley number 3. The only thing to turn me off on Barkley is, the touches he got last year.
Right.
350 plus touches. Usually, a guy when he's fed the ball this much, the next year, he's pretty beat up. And
Right.
will he survive? 300 some touches again? I don't know, but God, is he good.
He is.
And I don't even mind with the Philadelphia with the tush push. Them stealing some rushing touchdowns away from him. But I have to put Barkley myself at number 3. So we're looking at 1 Chase, 2 being Bijan, 3 being Barkley. Who's your choice of 3?
When you talk about Saquon, I love the way the guy plays too. I mean, he's very unselfish. He's he has that piece that you look for in any player. I mean, I think Saquon, you can put him really anywhere on the field. He's kind of one of those guys.
Well, he showed that last year when he had a chance to break the record. He said, "Give the ball to somebody else." So
I agree.
You're right on that. So,
and I know you had him in our league, and I had him in the league that I actually won last year. And you can't go wrong with picking a guy like that, number 3. But then when you have a situation like him and Justin Jefferson, I would take Barkley over Jefferson. That's just my opinion. I mean, I think he's going to get the touches, he's going to get everything he needs, and he's in an offense that's catered to the way he plays.
Right, and I love Jefferson. I just don't know about the situation with McCarthy there.
Right.
But then he did do well under Sam Darnold, so
that's right. That's right.
I'm guessing that makes it easy we're both going to agree with the number 4 pick. Are we thinking the number 4 pick is going to be Justin Jefferson in the standard league for most people?
Yeah, I think you can't pass on him there. I mean, you're number 4, you're drafting. You see a guy like him fall. In some leagues, they consider that a fall. I mean, we drop up. We talk about Barkley, we talk about Chase, obviously, and Bijan. But I think that is, you get him at number 4, you're smiling because the guy just produces. He makes the craziest catches. I mean, you could triple team him. He's open no matter what he does. He's Jamar Chase, but I think he has a couple more intangibles, in my opinion, and that's the fact that the way he goes up and gets the ball and makes those catches. I love the way that guy plays. That offense, though, like you said, with McCarthy in there, what are we going to see out of this? That's my question mark right there.
I agree with you. The man's a special talent. You look at the rest of the team around him. You have Addison. You have Hawkinson at tight end. Yeah, they're set to take some of the pressure off of Jefferson, but it's all going to depend on the quarterback there for me. Haven't seen enough about the kid yet. He was hurt last year. Haven't seen enough preseason yet, but I still think at 4 you can't go wrong with Justin Jefferson. So that puts us at what? 2 running backs and 2 receivers in the top 4, so 5. Where's that put us at 5, John?
Well, when I look on the board here, Ralph, I see I see CD Lamb obviously in there, and with CD, I still have a lot of questions about that Dallas offense. He's obviously, an amazing receiver, amazing talent. But, if I'm weighing between CD and a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs, I'm going Gibbs all the way.
That's where I was leading to. I would agree with you. I would take, I wouldn't drop CD too far, but I would take Gibbs, over him at that point. The only thing is now you still got Montgomery there, and right now the touch is being split, but Gibbs is a talent that I don't think you can pass on there. We're still on the running back. We're talking about this. How about McCaffrey? Where does McCaffrey go? Is this a guy that still stays in the top 12 picks? He was hurt last year. He had the Achilles injury. Um,
Right.
they're saying he's healthy. Now, let's face it, a healthy C-Mac, you take over half of these guys on the board. The guy's,
Right.
Receiver, he's a rusher. I mean, he's been the top player for how many years, but injury prone. Now with that offense, with Ayuk being out, we haven't seen enough of bots. The both of the receivers.
Right.
Kittle obviously is going to feed that offense right now. So your top guy in that offense is going to be, McCaffrey. Does he stay in the top 12?
I think so. I think with me, I mean, just based on this guy's history, I mean, obviously you have the injury piece of it, but you also, when he comes back from an injury, you don't see that let up. I mean, the guy trains like crazy. He's he's a huge part of that offense, and the tools that he has as far as his ability out of the backfield in the pass catching, scheme in that game right there. I think that's something that I believe that they're going to use him even a little bit more this year, and because you're looking at obviously all the injuries, Debo gone. I mean, Debo would take carries away, obviously, and you have Jennings, Ayuk, a lot of injuries right there. He's going to be a guy that's going to be relied on, and I think a guy with that history. I think that if you have an opportunity to take him, I wouldn't take him in the top 4, but he drops down in that 5 to 10 range. I'm definitely going with him, and that's where he has been going. Look at the boards here. This one here has him tier 3 at number 12. I think if you can get Christian McCaffrey at 12, and you're drafting
you're doing
in
pretty
a
good.
snake league,
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
I agree. So so I think we both agree on the next two. After taking Gibbs, we're probably sitting at CD Lamb there.
Right.
So we're at Lamb at what? So that puts us at 6, right? So CD
Right.
Lamb, Prescott has somebody else to throw to. They got Pickens there. But the running back situation there kind of worries me. But we will talk about that a little bit later in the
Right.
in the show here. I have a guy that we want to talk about. But are we saying that CD Lamb goes 6 then?
Yeah, I think he's good at 6. I think that's a good fit. I mean, you look at the guys that are in there. Obviously, we took Gibbs, in the at number 4, and we dropped CD to 5. Uh, Malik Neighbors, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Puka Nacua are the next ones that I have on the list.
So I'm going to throw in another guy there at running back. What about, we talked about him earlier, what about Henry? Henry's turning in, he's on the wrong side of 30.
Right.
Still shows he has plenty in the tank. Would you throw Henry there at 7, over those guys? Or would you go with the Sun God? Would you stick with Amon-Ra?
That's a tough one. When you listen, when you talk, when you bring it that way, I think I would look at it as, how does the draft play out? If I start to see, like we're doing here, we have 3 running backs off the board. Who's the next best? And if I'm drafting deep in that draft, and like we're looking here, if we get Christian McCaffrey at 12, I'm taking a chance on McCaffrey more than Henry, and the fact that is a pass catching ability. So then you look at, you get McCaffrey, and then you could jump up and grab a receiver that falls a little bit. So it kind of just depends on how the draft falls. But Derrick Henry, I mean, like you said, the guy is when you say beast, that's he's in the dictionary under that word.
Is it
Amazing,
shown
amazing player.
over 1,900 yards, man? It's hard to pass. Hard to pass on that. I mean, I get it. He's 30 something, but the thing with, I'm looking at the other guys there, like I said, Amon-Ra. The thing with the Lions, again, many mouths to feed. You got Laporta still there. You got Williams still there.
Right.
Yes, he's a producer. But for me, I think after CD Lamb, I would probably take Henry.
Yeah,
But that's just
you can't go wrong moving him up. I mean, the guy, really. And I was just listening to a show today, speaking of this, and it was talking about how the guys that are the big money fantasy guys, are looking past a lot of the rookies this year and going for the veterans. I mean, because you have the productivity and you have the history and you obviously know what you're going to get out of these guys. You know, I don't see anything wrong with taking, one of these rookies, a little bit higher in the draft. But, I think, like you said, I mean, if we're looking at, say, who'd be a good one to put out here? A guy like Ashton Jeanty. You take Jeanty, and then you have, Derrick Henry. I mean, who do you take out of those two if you put them together? I mean, you're going to take a risk on a Raider offense that's shaky at best, or are you going to take a risk on a guy that's it's a perennial playoff team every year?
Hey,
And
I like Genty, but man, you seen it in the preseason. Now I know it's just preseason, but
right,
he was moving the wrong way. What it looked like to me behind that offense. Here's a quick
right,
question for you: for the first time fantasy guys, your first time fantasy, your buddies call you and say, "Hey, we're starting to leg up," um, and you've never done this before. Who do you think are some players or some instances that new players, what should they be wary of? What should they be aware of?
that's a great question, man. That's a great question. I think one of the things that they should be wary of is taking a quarterback too early. I think if you look at the history of these drafts, and you see, obviously you have Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, but I'm seeing guys like Jalen Hurts dropping a little bit, or you
Hmm?
get a guy like Daniels, or you know, it, I would say I would build my team, with running backs. I've always built it mainly with running backs first because of the amount of quality that you can get up there, but also the injury history.
John, with you're sounding old school, man. Receivers
I'm
seem
old
to
school,
be
man.
popping up, man. But I do agree with you. Your main start is to have a good stable running back core, or just that main stud. But like
Right,
as you said, waiting on a quarterback now. Granted, yes, there are some great quarterbacks in the top five. And we can talk about it. We can go down the list of Jackson, Allen, Hurts, Burrow, Daniels. There's five. But
right,
even when you start getting into six, and people love the guy, but the numbers haven't been there for the last couple of years. And I'm talking Patrick Mahomes.
right.
Mahomes is a great quarterback, right?
That's
But
right.
he's not putting up the numbers as these guys are. But even when you run down a list, after Mahomes, um, here's a guy, Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield in that
Right.
offense,
That's right.
different player from when he was with the Browns, right?
There's no doubt. There's
So
no doubt.
so if you end up with Baker Mayfield, even guys like, and I know this is one of the guys that you love, and he was a little disappointed in him last year, but C.J. Stroud.
Right.
C.J. Stroud falls at like number 12. It's a guy who can sit on. Dak Prescott. Prescott's going to have a halfway decent year. Jordan Love. There's
So
many
true.
guys,
That's right.
but I would agree. Somebody that's jumping up in the first round, and they need to have Allen. They need to have guys like that. But we're running real quick here, so we only have about 7 minutes left of our slot here, John. So the other guys left that we could draft. We talked about C-Mac. Um, we talked about Jefferson Lamb, Puka Nakua. One guy I want to mention before we go here is Nico Collins. Nico Collins he's a sneaky guy for me.
Right.
Maybe at 12, somebody that could take. But how about before we finish the draft, let's each go over sleepers. You're in a deep league, you're in a deep fantasy league, in a dynasty league maybe. You're at the end of your draft. You know, guys that you think might fall in what they might do that could actually propel your team over the top. Why don't you give me a guy or two, John, and we'll talk about it, and I'll give you a guy or two, and we'll go through them. What do you think?
Well, let me start right here with this guy, because this guy is he's a guy that actually won my fantasy league for me last year. And I have to say he's really put me over the top in the playoffs. And that's Jalen McMillan of the Tampa Bay Bucks. I mean, you mentioned Baker Mayfield and the way that team is set up. And obviously, you're looking at Chris Godwin coming back, from a major injury, another injury. Mike Evans on the other side. But McMillan, the last 7 weeks of that season, 5 weeks of that season, I mean, he was a touchdown king. The guy was open in the red zone. They used him. Baker wasn't afraid to throw to him. And I see him, I mean, mega deep in these drafts. And I see people saying, well, we're shaky on it.
They
I say
drafted
it's
receiver
just kidding.
high.
Right. But I still see Jalen making the plays because you have to get that trust built with that quarterback, and Baker Mayfield trusts him. And year number 2, watch out for Jalen McMillan. Everybody, trust me.
Okay, so I'm going to throw one out to you. So Seattle, right? The guy right now is beating out, MVS. His last game, 3 catches, 31 yards, a touchdown, moving up the board. Torrey Horton.
Yep.
Deep sleeper. They're loving him there. I think it's a guy that you can take late in the draft, maybe like your 12th round, 13th round. Because let's face it, how long is Kupp going to be there? If you're in a dynasty league, it's somebody you could sit on. Plus, if you get these points he's probably going to be their punt returner. So if you get points for stuff like that, you could easily take a guy like that late in the draft and not feel bad about, a guy like that. I mean, they're raving about him, so that would be one of my deep sleepers would be, Torrey Horton.
And he's taken the first team reps. He's and you're looking at Kupp coming off of the injury. You're looking at the age, obviously. And another thing too, I mean, just like in Jigba, they play out of the slot. I mean, so you have 2 guys that are competing for the same, the same reps, the same, we're running similar routes. I think Horton's a great pick. I really do. I mean, I think that you're obviously going to get him deep. You're gonna take a risk anyway. But if you're going to take a risk, why not put that risk into somebody that's showing it? Obviously we need to see a little bit more, but taking first team reps already, I like what they're doing here. I do.
We probably got time for one more pick or two from one from myself and one from you. So we'll be wrapping up here. Before we wrap up again, though, we want to give one more shout out to First and Goal Collectibles, Mark Caputo, for all your sports collectibles, sports cards, autograph needs. 412-854-5200. And that's firstandgoalsports.com. You go out and see Mark. You tell him Ralph sent you. And it probably won't do you any good, but you can tell him Ralph sent you.
Or you could promise him $100 discount or something.
Right. But that would work. That would be the next time I go in there, he'd charge me $100 extra for the next thing I buy. But go ahead, John. Give me one more guy.
Let's get in the list here, man. Like I said, I just did this. I'll tell you one of the guys that I really, really like, and it's just for the sake of the way he produces. I mean, last year, obviously I have him on my dynasty team, and that's AJ Brown, and I like AJ for the fact that he quietly produces. He's an absolute mismatch on the outside, based on what that team did last year, and you obviously have the huge threat with Barkley. So I think we're going to see a little bit more in the air this year out of Philly. I think, Devontae Smith obviously is another. I would consider him a sleeper. When he's healthy, the long ball is his. But I like AJ Brown. I mean, if you look in where we were talking about right there, you're looking at St. Brown, Nakua, Malik Neighbors. I think Malik Neighbors, obviously a huge talent, but I think he falls a little bit because of the quarterback situation. And that's one of the things that makes me shaky about him. But I like AJ Brown.
And I got one more for you guys too. I mean, I looked at my list of sleepers. At Horton, I have Tyler Warren, rookie tight end in Indy. Obviously we know about Jaden Blue, who has a little bit of foot, is hurt and things like that. But I'm going to go with Rashawn Johnson, running back. In And the Ben Johnson offense, he had with Gibbs and Montgomery, and he is hurt a little bit right now. But a late round draft pick, it might be a guy to take a chance on. So,
we were talking sleepers, and I'm looking at our. I'm going into our 10 picks out of the draft.
Yeah,
that's why I put AJ there. So he's not a sleeper. Everybody, we were just on another topic, but the guys that you brought up right there. When I brought up McMillan, I want to bring up a guy like if we have time for this, is obviously he's not a huge sleeper, but Cortland Sutton, he's been making a lot of noise in these drafts. I mean, he's he's Bo Nix's go-to guy, and I think we're going to see a lot out of Sutton this year. So you may not look at him as a sleeper so much, but I think in that Denver offense, the new contract, this guy's going to make some noise.
And that would be a guy that if you're looking at Sutton, it's probably going to be a guy that's going to be in the 5th, 6th round, 7th round. If you're looking for that stretch of a receiver to pick, he's not going to be there early, but it's a guy that's going to produce for you. But John, we got to wrap up here. We're at our time. Again, thank you, John, for coming on, talking sports with us. We're going to be doing this every Wednesday, and we'll be going over many things. Just to kick off the show, standard guys to look at. We'll go over dynasty leagues. We'll go over for you hardcore fantasy fans. We'll go over IDP leagues, which are individual defensive players. We'll go over whatever you guys want. If you have questions. You can tune in every Wednesday night at 8:30. It's going to be our time slot with Sports Bible. You can tune in to see Rockin Renegades here, and join us for all your fantasy talk and your fantasy needs. Again, John, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you. Let's do this again next week.
That sounds good, man. I enjoyed it, and thanks for having me, Ralph. Thanks for inviting me, and thanks, John, too. Behind the scenes there, man.
Sounds good. All right. Thank you, guys. See you next week.
Thanks, everybody. See you next week.